Hello there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Hello! I know, I like to keep myself off camera. Now, I have got hold of these beads. They're on a band and some corduroy, and it's from the remnants bin. It's still got its price tag on, and I'm going to make a beaded bag. So, as I've only got, I suppose, 1/4 of a metre, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a healthy length. I'm going to use one of the strips of the corduroy. Now, including in this healthy length, I've also got the salvage, and I'm going to use that just to go over and make my strap. So that's that. I need a circle now that's going to be large enough to encompass this strip of fabric. So I've folded over a hem allowance and I've got it sort of upright. I do have a mug here, so I can kind of use it as a guideline, and I need my circle to be at least that sort of shape. I know there's no easy way. There is a calculation that you can do on the old internet to tell you how much diameter and radius and outside of the circle is, but you know, we're going to just guess it by eye. So to do that, first of all, I'm going to cut out a square. Now, if your base isn't big enough than your arm here, then we'll have to do the sewing of the beads on first. So let's just curve this round and have a look to see what sort of circle we're left with. So there we go. Very, very rough, I know. We could then find something of a similar size and make a circle of that. But what we definitely don't want is it bigger than the actual piece of fabric. So, got my sewing machine all set up. I've got my raw edge of my corduroy and I've got my circle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this circle on. I think it's going to be too big actually. So I'm going to check it before I actually do sew it on. And then, so I'm going to mark a point of the circle. And then I'm just going to squidge this round. And then if the pin comes back to the beginning, then I know I'm okay. If not, I'm going to trim this circle now. It is a bit big. Well, it's just as well I did that. So let's cut this down a bit. What I'm doing is folding it up into 1/8, and then with some really sharp scissors, just trimming the edge off. Now this is practice, obviously, so there's not a lot I can say about that. But I now have my circle for my base of my bag, and I am going to place the circle on the strip and then just sew round. So right side to right side, and I can just literally tease this circle round. Corduroy does have a bit of stretch, so I do have to be careful that I don't stretch the fabric. Now I'm back at the beginning, so let's just sew to the beginning, and what I've done is I've left myself a hemming allowance for the side. So if my circle can fit over there, then that's great. If it can't, then what we're going to have to do is sew these beads on before. So I'm going to sew the beads on because, you know, I want to show you how to do it. So what we need is the end of these. Now they do knot up very quickly and we need them facing downwards. And we've got to be very careful that we don't actually sew over any of these beads, because they will break your machine, you know, they really will. So as I'm not doing it in a circle, I'm going to put this back on just for ease of use of myself. And I'm going to choose a line and then I'm going to stick with it. So now, yes, if you're not using corduroy, you can always pencil in a line, or you can pin it. But basically, we just have to choose a bit and start. Now, I'm going to put a couple of stitches in there. And this is really just to hold it in whilst I get myself sorted out, because I know that I can't sew over any of these beads, but I must sew over the tape. So I can see quite clearly the line that I'm going to use, and what I'm going to do is sew, and then I'm going to get myself sorted out to sew another good 4 inches. And of course jingling my beads. Now I've started at the bottom. This is mainly so that I can not sew over the beads for the next line. So there we are. Jingling again. Now of course, if I was sewing a circle, I could then just keep on going round, but because I'm doing it in strips, what I'm going to have to do is stop and then go again, so, which is fine. Go, just shuffling my beads, making sure that I'm not sewing over them. To the end of the first row, which is all good, and I'm literally just going to trim. Just finish sewing that. So there we are, we have our first row. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning and you can see how effective that is. They're such a thing of beauty. Now, really, you need to decide how many rows you're going to get. I think I've got enough for another 2, so I'm quite happy. I'm going to place it again, and I'm going to sew very slowly. And I don't know if there is an easy way of keeping these beads out of the sewing line. I must admit, I quite like the idea of stopping and wiggling them, but it really is whatever you can do. Now, I did get this from my local haberdashery, and I'm delighted with it. I found it rather cheap. I think it was £3 a metre. So, but there are an awful lot of beads here, and I do think that they make such a nice effect. So, okay, I'm going to carry on working through, and I'll be back in a moment. So, hello there. So that's what I'm left with, and now I need to sew up the strap hole, as it were. I can't think of anything a better way of describing it. And so literally I'm going to place the selvage over, and of course I've got to be careful of all these beads, and I'm going to leave the strap that I'm going to use in there now. Now what I've done is I've sewn a ring of lining. Now, entirely up to you, and there's a little bit of elastic in there as well. Just because that's how I want it. So when I've got everything in place, I'm going to start sewing. Now obviously when you're sewing over the selvage, your machine is going to say, I don't really like it, which is fine. Your machine can say what it likes, can't it? But yeah, that's fine. Now another thing I'm making sure I'm doing is I'm making sure that all the beads are out of the way. So, and double checking, you know, it's all good. I've got my bobbin thread caught up under my foot, so it's not lying flat, so you probably can't see much. And there we go. Just sew a little bit and then check. You know, the smaller something is, the harder it is to sew, really. It's just one of those things. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? I thought we were doing so well. Oh. I'm just going to grab another bobbin rather than stop the camera again. Yeah, the reason I only stop the camera once is because I should be able to stop the camera as many times as I like, but a couple of times I've lost the video because the memory just failed, so that's why I only stopped the camera once. Okay, so I've got bobbin thread back in there now, and then I can get sewing. And I'm going over my selvage. So I've got the glue, as it were. Yeah, to make the strap, all I did was fold over a piece of fabric and then sewed up the off sides and then turned it inside out. It's something I do quite a lot, and I just prefer it. I nearly put ribbon in it instead for the handle. So the next job is to sew the handle together. Now we should be able to sort of stitch it in so that it's neat, tidy. Yeah. Or we can just do it quite scruffily, and then we can tuck it into the bag, so we can just sort of pull it round. And you really have two choices. You can either use the handle as the opening, which I quite like because you can't then have it not closed when you're holding it, or you can have it separate than the drawstring. Okay, so a good shake just to make sure that everything's out of the way, because we really don't want to smash any of those beads because our machine really wouldn't like it. And then just a simple line of stitches up to the top. Well, up to the handle. We don't want to go over the actual drawstring. Now what you can do is you can then pop along and trim it with your pinking shears, or you can just go over these edges with the zigzag foot. I'm going to use pinking shears because I think that's just a really nice effect. And then whilst I'm out, if anyone notices the bag, you know, I can literally say, well, you won't find it in a shop because it's handmade. So there we are, our wonderful little personalised grab bag. Okay, thank you ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee.